Ironheart is the most recent Disney Plus Marvel show, and it really just ended after a 6 episode run, and it's been getting a lot of hate, a lot of unnecessary hate from a lot of people who hate it, who have valid reasons, and people who hate the show because of some other reasons. This coming from people who watch the show and people who watched the show, if you get what I mean. The big scene that people are hitting a lot is the scene in the first episode where Riri's basically doing a monologue, and let me just play the scene.
Do you think Tony Stark would be Tony Stark if he wasn't a billionaire?
So basically she's doing a monologue where she's basically an MIT trying to build her own iron suit, and then she basically says that Tony Stark wouldn't be Tony Stark if he wasn't a billionaire. People are taking the sentence as a bit of disrespect towards Tony Stark and Robert Downey Jr. But let's not forget that in the press for the Ironheart show, multiple times Robert Downey Jr. has mentioned that he loves Ironheart and that he's supportive of Riri Williams and Ironheart in the MCU.
Anyway, I don't want to step on your interview. Long story short, Iron Man loves Ironheart.
That's so crazy.
Second, it's sort of true. Let's compare the situations between Riri Williams and Tony Stark, building like their first armor and stuff. Riri Williams is a character that we know in the show wasn't born in a billionaire family where her father was basically having expos in the 40s. You know who had a father that had technology expos in the 40s during World War II when Captain America was still active? Tony Stark. We see at multiple points in the show that Riri Williams needs money for Iron Suit. Her first armor that was funded by MIT, I'll give you that, but that armor did not even survive 10 minutes of an episode. The main armor that she uses over the show is when she builds herself, and she tries with her own money. And the fact that she got that far, making that armor on those resources, basically almost without working, is impressive. But then she gets into with the hood, and that gang gets a lot more money, obviously, towards the armor, But Tony Stark, on the other hand, he was born into a billionaire family, so he was already born into all that wealth. I'm not saying that it isn't impressive that Tony was able to take that wealth that he inherited from his father and making even beyond with multiple armors, a full tower, technology to give to the world. But let's not forget, the main argument that people have against this sentence by Riri is that Tony Stark built the armor in the cave, the famous Obadiah Stane scene in the first Iron Man.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
But let's not forget what materials he used and why he is there in the first place. So they're ambushed by the 10 rings. Yeah, the same thing as the Mandarin, etc. And they're kidnapping Tony because they need Tony to make a lot more weapons for the 10 rings. Basically, what they use to attack them is Stark technology. And we see multiple times in that cave scene that he's using Stark technology to build his new armor and the arc reactor. So let's not pretend like Tony basically made that stuff out of scratch, because he had live missiles with armor casing, power, fire, components and everything, and he used those materials to make his armor. So let's not pretend that came out of nowhere, because it came from somewhere. Tony only made that armor because of the stuff he already had before, because of the money he has to produce all these missiles and these weapons. Riri has a point in this scene. Now, my thoughts on the show, on the Ironheart show. I personally really enjoyed it. I was already a day one supporter of the show when it was announced back, I think, in the Disney investors meeting like 5 years ago. I was already interested in the show. I was already excited for it. And the show just gave me what I wanted, which was a cool standalone story in the Marvel Universe focusing on Riri Williams trying on her own journey. And one thing I will agree on is that the first 2 episodes and a bit of the third one felt a little slow. That's normal, because let's not forget that this show is not set in New York or in Los Angeles, it's set in Chicago. So it makes sense for the first few episodes to introduce the main characters, the main cast of characters, Riri, her mother, Natalie, Xavier, etc. And then set up what's going to be the eventual story of the show that will lead all into the finale. But those last 3 episodes were really great in my opinion, especially the last one. The last one was pretty good. And I think a lot of people are missing the point of the show. A lot of people are angry that Riri did not become the hero of her own story, because normally in superhero projects they go through very high, very low, and then they become the hero on top. I think what we're witnessing here with Ironheart is the fall of Riri Williams. So, spoilers in case you haven't seen the show, but the last episode focuses on the Hood, and especially basing a bit of how he got the Hood and how that was a deal with Mephisto. So he's finally in the MCU. The episode ends with basically Riri, I think, making a deal with Mephisto to bring Natalie back, but she thought it was the AI from the first episodes, but it was actually Natalie, as in the person that died, Riri's best friend. So this is something different that we haven't seen in the MCU, and I'll give the writers credit for that. They tried to do something different with the main character of the hero, but instead they more become like the villain of their own story. And one thing I'm interested in is if we're ever going to see Ironheart again in the MCU. I'm desperately hoping that it gets renewed for season 2. But I don't know, especially after Secret Wars and whatever happens to that the MCU seems like it will hit the reset button, apparently. Yeah, I'm generally interested if you're going to see Ironheart or Mephisto again in the MCU in the next couple of years. I really hope we do, because I really, really like the show and I really liked Riri's character. So hopefully we get to see them again, because this is such an intriguing storyline of Riri bringing her friend back and then having to deal with the consequences of wearing the hood, because she did keep the hood. In the last episode, there was like in the background there's like a shot of the armor, her new armor with the hood over it. So basically giving like infamous Iron Man vibes. A lot of cool stuff that was set up in that finale, but it's not likely that we're gonna see it. Hopefully we do. I really want to see it, but I'll have to say that the Ironheart hate is forced as hell for no reason, really. The show wasn't perfect. Let's not pretend like it was, because it wasn't, but still wasn't the worst thing in the history of the universe. So, and this also marked the end of Phase 5 in the MCU, which is very good. So, yeah, thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and comment below what you think of Ironheart. I guess so. I'm George. Peace out. Take care.